This morning, we're going to talk about engaged Buddhism, which is not a term that I care much for, but because it's one of those things that we Americans came up with, because we have to have a label for everything. So just so you know that that's what we're talking about today. From my point of view, engaged Buddhism is bodhisattva action, compassionate action in the world. And that is something that we all aspire to as we get a little more well versed in our practice. So today's the second in OZC's series of Dharma talks by senior students. Karen was the first person who did this, and along with Genjo, when they talked about their experience at the Jikyo. And the purpose of these talks is to allow Sangha members to speak about their spiritual journeys so that we can come to know each other on a little bit more intimate basis and to tap into the wisdom and experience of the Sangha treasure, which there is much of that in this room. Today, Mickey Olson and Calvin Malone will share with us their personal experiences in their work with the Faith Action Network, an interfaith group, a statewide interfaith group dedicated to promoting socially beneficial legislation. In the Four Bodhisattva Vows, which we will say after the Dharma talk today, we chant, "Beings are numberless, I vow to save them." So as you begin to experience relief from suffering through your Zen practice, you may ask yourself what you can do to help others. Generally, here at OZC, we've taken a more individual approach to bodhisattva practice instead of acting together as a community. OZC members have served as hospice volunteers, as mediators with the Olympia Dispute Resolution Center. Some have visited prisoners and held services within the prison complex, or taught courses on meditation to psychology professionals. Some fortunate Sangha members have found right livelihood, work that allows them to live their Buddhist values every day while also earning a living. Mickey and Calvin are such people. Mickey with a PhD in religion
it's a master's.
I'm sorry, a master's. I don't want to get you your head to get too big here. And is it religion? I wasn't sure what.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Comparative religions.
Comparative religion. So it's like world religions. She served as a Head Start teacher for many years, working with young children. And Calvin has worked with prisoners and for prison reform for many years. Today, they will share their personal experiences. Please listen with open ears and deep attention.
First of all, I want to thank all Sangha members who contributed to the donation that we make to Faith Action Network each year. They request an annual donation from us. It's our choice how much to send. In the fall to confirm our membership. And this support allowed us to feel that we were representing you when we participated in the Interfaith Action Day last month. Why have I made Faith Action Network part of my personal Dharma practice, just as I do with sutra chanting, arranging flowers, or washing the dishes? I've been involved in engaged Buddhism ever since that movement was founded decades ago by a group of the best known teachers in America. This statewide organization has given us one more method for walking the path of Dharma with our Sangha. Because individuals do not join FAN, as we call it, and I'm going to use that term more frequently. Individuals do not join FAN, congregations do. So while looking statewide, most of the congregations and the largest are Christian churches, we are not the only Buddhist Sangha that's represented, and who I see their delegates every year. 6 Unitarians and Muslims are also members. Here at our temple, when we put on our rakusu in the morning, we chant the robe chant, which we just chanted. How great is this robe, a virtuous garden far beyond form and emptiness. I will wear Tathagata's teachings, saving all sentient beings. Wait a minute, all sentient beings? How could I, as one member of a small temple in Olympia, Washington, possibly do that? But when I go on their advocacy day, I am wearing Buddha's teachings on my sleeve, as it were, when I meet with my legislators. Again, when we take the 4 vows each morning, these are in our black book under the title of Sigu Seigan on page 2. Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharmas are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassed, I vow to become it. I vow every day to save all beings and end their suffering, and yet they are numberless. In other words, the task is impossible. And I'm quoting Aitken Roshi here. The task is impossible, but I vow to do it anyway. And then, of course, on full moon night, I have to appear and confess that I failed. But maybe on that one day a year, I might have taken one step to save a few beings. A few years ago, the director of Faith Action Network asked me to present the opening remarks representing congregations. The Jews had done it the year before, and the Muslims had done it, and so that year, it was the Buddhist turn. This was in 2013, I believe. So I asked our abbot what I should say, and her reply was, don't talk about Buddhism, just talk about Kuan Yin. And so I did. I read the Jikyo Kanan Gyo and talked about Kanan Sama Kuan Yin as the embodiment of compassion. So I'm turning to that sutra now. We always chant this in the morning, and we always chant it in the Sino-Japanese. But I want to quote Aitken Roshi's English translation, which also appears in our sutra book. Kanzeon, at one with Buddha, related to all Buddhas in cause and effect, and to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, joyful, pure, eternal being. Morning mind is Kanzeon, evening mind is Kanzeon. This very moment arises from mind. This very moment is not separate from mind. Kanzeon, the Buddha, Bodhisattva who embodies compassion. When we are not separated from her, small mind slips away and we become compassion itself. This is a mind I try to hold through my day of advocacy down at our legislature, not to get trapped in political scheming or back and forth between parties, which is so easy to do in the political world, but to hold steady a mind of compassion. Next, I'm turning to the Metta Sutta, the Buddha's words on loving kindness from the Pali Canon. And I'm reading here from the Amaravati Sangha's translation. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the paths of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating loving kindness over the entire world. There's that paradox again. All living beings, who, me? But maybe for just one day, I can speak in this spirit. Even as a mother protects her child, her only child, I can extend love and kindness to those who could be helped by state government if we chose to do it. One of Faith Action Network's officers put it this way on our advocacy day when she spoke. Many groups come to lobby the legislature, but Faith Action Network is the only one that is motivated solely by love of neighbor. This is the strength of this organization. So, armed with all these wonderful sutras, let me tell you a little bit about my venture down the path of advocacy last month. So Interfaith Action Day is structured with issue-oriented workshops in the morning, and appointments had been scheduled with our legislators in the afternoon. 4 workshops were available, and each of the 2 of us chose separate workshops so that we covered all the workshops, but not together. And one of the ones I happened to choose was nutrition. And here I heard about the issue that was going to keep me occupied for the rest of the day. So let me set the stage here. The federal government, with COVID funding that was made available a couple of years ago, provided payments for local feeding programs such as school lunch for kids. This funding has ended and there isn't going to be any more federal money. But a path was set up for states to pick up the slack. And our state superintendent of schools, knowing that universal school lunch had worked very well under the federal funding, sent the bill to the legislature. On that day, the day that we were there, on that very day, it was being discussed in committee in the House of Representatives. If this bill does not pass, school lunches, Meals on Wheels, lunches at senior centers, food stamps, food banks, and feeding programs for the homeless will lose up to 80% of their funding. And just at the moment when, as you all know, food prices are skyrocketing anyway, and there's no sign of them going down. So people are hungry already. I should, and I want to add that I don't receive any of these benefits myself. I was not advocating for myself in any way. I was advocating for those hungry children. And actually, because actually I am one of the lucky ones, I can't afford food for myself. And, but I'm sure that there are some sitting here in this room who do make use of some of these feeding programs. So to me, this was a no-brainer. This bill has to pass. It just has to. Who could vote against feeding our kids? At the end of the hour, at the end of the hour of this workshop, I went up to the presenter and I said, okay, I have an appointment with Senator Hunt at 2:30. What do you think I should say? And she said, thank you. Just say thank you. Because Senator Hunt, who serves the district here where Olympia Zen Center is located, was the prime sponsor of the Senate version of the bill, and probably the author of it too, and has done more than anybody else in the Senate to get this bill on the table. So I had my mission for the day to meet with Senator Hunt and tell him thank you for his work. So next on the schedule, we moved into caucuses with everybody else coming from our same district. And being that we're located right here in Olympia, this was the largest caucus. There were about 20 people in our caucus. So people coming from farther away, this was not a problem. Because they might send only one, they might have only one or two delegates making the trip. And so everybody could get their say very easily. But in our caucus, there were so many people that we couldn't even fit into the section of seating that they had reserved for us. And our senator was only willing to see 3 people. So naturally, the pushiest of the caucus members got themselves very quickly appointed to fill those 3 spots. But I had not made a vow to be pushy that day. And fortunately, Faith Action Network provides the means, because we have these red registration packets when we sign in. And in these packets were many copies of these Faith Action Network notes that we can leave, and we can go, whether we have an appointment or not, you can go to your representative's office and leave a note at any time or day. And these count just as much as if you met with them personally. Because many's the time, though you have an appointment, you don't actually meet with the representative, and you're dealing with their legislative aid anyhow. And this gets your message across just as well, as you will see. So the first meeting was with our House representative, Jessica Bateman. So I went to the building where I thought her office was. I've been there before. And the information person at the desk told me that there was no such person in this building, and I had to go over to the Capitol building across the street. This didn't seem right to me, but I said, oh well, maybe things have changed, maybe her office has moved. And so I went over to the Capitol building, wandered around asking everybody I saw where her office was, and being completely misinformed by each and every one of them. But finally, a guy who was actually better informed came out, and I could run up and ask him for where's Representative Bateman's office. And of course, it's back in the first building where I was already turned away. But he walked me over there, took me up in the elevator to her actual office, and arranged for a chair for me so that I could sit there and write out my note. So I was doing that, and I finished that and turned it into the window, and I had almost finished my note of thanks to Senator Hunt when here he came walking down the hall. My kindly guide quickly introduced me to him, and I got to say thank you with my own remarks about why this issue was so very important to me. And I was an hour and a half ahead of the pushy people. So, what happened next? We get updates from FAN every week about what's happening to the various bills as they progress along or don't progress along. If a bill is not passed out of their house of origin by a certain date, it's dead for the year and have to wait till next year. But House Bill 1784, hunger relief, passed unanimously out of the House by the deadline last Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it was. So they divided the bill into two. It's quite complicated. They divided the bill into two. House Bill 1784 provides $20 million for food banks, $6 million for senior meals, $2 million for fruits and vegetable incentives, which will replace other COVID-linked benefits. House Bill 1238, free school meals, would provide school meals to 90,000 more students in our state, but not all. So this is wonderful, of course, as far as it goes, as far as it goes. But if you think about how many different feeding sites there are across the whole state, this is far what the far below what the original proposal would have. It's pathetic. It's just not nearly enough. So what happens next? Both bills are, the House has passed both of these bills. They now go to the Senate Ways and Means Committee on Monday, and where the bill will be heard. And this is where Senator Hunt will be able to shine. And I have already sent my pro vote electronically to be, these are considered on an equal basis with the people who show up in person. So this is a really good thing for people to do. And I'm sure that it's going to pass unanimously too through the Senate. It's now the Senate's turn. But it'll still be too stingy. So, and I wanted to say that any citizen can call in on this or any bill to the legislative hotline, which number used to be posted out there in the entryway, but now I can't find it, and I think I can get it for you if any of you are interested. No, I can't promise that. I don't know that I have it at home, but yeah. So I can do something about this, but not by Monday. So in summary, I am not so egotistical to think that my small input changed any minds in this whole process. The outcome would have been the same if I had stayed home in bed, because the necessity of the cause sold itself. But if any small merit was won by me that day, I wish to dedicate it to hungry children everywhere. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
For the benefit of those who don't know me, my name is Calvin Malone. I'm a formerly incarcerated person. I normally don't announce that because sometimes I close the doors for conversation and other things, but for the sake of understanding what I'm about to say, that was necessary. People have often asked me how I entered the stream. And I don't have a really wonderful story about that. All I can say is that I was trying to figure out a way to, when I first entered prison, to figure out a way to navigate potentially 30 years of incarceration. And I entered my first facility a very angry person with a lot of issues. And as I lay in my bunk and I looked through the bars at the wall and the OPEC window, I was wondering, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I thought, well, I could change, but how am I going to do that? There was no book, there was no guide, there was nothing. So somehow by accident, I ran into a little pamphlet saying that meditation helps, just meditation, didn't know Buddhism or anything like that. And so just for the purpose of reducing my anger and calming down and reducing my blood pressure, I decided to take up meditation, not knowing what it was, not knowing anything about meditation Buddhism. I just sat down on my bunk and looked at the walls and tried to figure out what to do. Nothing worked, really. Nothing changed. I was still having thoughts and doing things and saying things that were probably not really that good. So with the help of the chaplain, I decided that I needed some guidance. And so what I did is I wrote 272 letters to all the Buddhist communities that I could find in the back of Tricycle magazine. And I started getting letters back from Kenenbasaka Kawasaki from the Buddhist Relief Mission in Sri Lanka, Zen priest Vanya Palmers from Switzerland, and many, many other teachers, Sanyana Graf from Vermont Zen Center, Venerable Rowan Conrad from Montana, Teresa Fitzgerald from the Community of Mindful Living in San Francisco. And the list went on and on and on. And they gave me wonderful guidance and words of encouragement, all this help and assistance. And I was overwhelmed. I had no idea that people would look past me and extend a hand. And I said, well, what is this Buddhism thing? One of my friends who later became a practitioner, he said, Calvin, you're the most Buddhist person I've ever met. And, you know, in prison, I wasn't so sure if that was a compliment. But what ended up happening is that I couldn't see the benefit of meditation in front of me for several years, until one day I went to the library and there was an opportunity for people just to sit and socialize and so on. And as I was walking in the door, someone came behind me and started screaming at me. And I mean, with so much anger and so much aggression that my flight and fight started coming forward. And all of a sudden I just chilled back a little bit, put my arm on the bookcase and watched him as he was yelling and spittle on my face and so on. And I was thinking, and I couldn't even hear him. You know, all of a sudden I started thinking about all these other things like, wow, just think a few years ago, I would have probably killed him. What's wrong with me? I'm not even responding to this guy, you know? And so trying to remain calm and not make this even worse than it could be, I reached into the book like he wasn't there and I didn't care what he was saying. And I pulled out a book and I started just going through it. I was pretending, and watching him at the same time to make sure he wasn't going to attack me. And it was a book on metta. Now the Buddhist section was, as usually is in prison, on the lower shelf in the corner, hidden away, and all the Christian books were all around, right? But that one book was on this side of the room, in the middle of the Jehovah Witnesses books. So I'm looking at metta, this book metta, and I'm going, but I didn't know what that was. So I said, oh, it was a Buddhist book, and I opened it up and I started reading it as he's yelling at me. Now I'm not even looking at him. I don't care what he's doing. And what is metta? Loving kindness. I said, partner, you're all right. You're going to be okay. Tomorrow's going to be a lot better. And I left. And that's when I realized the benefit of my practice. I didn't know until that moment. But what was really impactful to me was the fact that all these people who I never met in my life extended a hand toward me despite what my past was, without any judgment. And I said, I want to be part of that, whatever that is. I want to be part of that. So there are dozens of stories like that throughout my time of incarceration. However, toward the end of my incarceration, and also earlier, Ado visited me quite often in various prisons that I was in. And toward the end of my incarceration, she said, you know, I'm going to talk to the Sangha and see if you can't come here as your release address or your release contact. And that was arranged, and I got out in December of 2019. And came here and stayed here. Was going to stay here for 3 months, but COVID extended that to 6. I came here in the midst, at the beginning of a retreat. And that is how I landed. Many, many people don't have that opportunity. And while I was here, Ado said, you know, here's what you can do some of this, you know, trying to keep me busy. I walk a lot and try to figure out how to use a cell phone, you know, how to open a laptop, you know, and all the trying to catch up with you all. But then one day she said, you know, we belong to this organization called the Faith Alliance Network. And this is what it does. And I'd like for you to go, and maybe you could advocate for things that you believe in. So I was always willing to do whatever I could to return all that which was given to me. So I said, sure, I'll do it, not knowing what that entailed. And ultimately, I was able to, as Mickey has pointed out, there's caucuses and there's workshops and there's a lot of meetings, and it's a grueling day. It really is. But it's also very interesting because you meet people and you're engaged and you feel like you're part of something that may not make a big difference. But remember, every ocean is made up of that one drop of water, and then 2, and then 3, and so on. So I was going to add my little piece. And I had the opportunity to talk to Senator Hunt the first year and talk to him about my ideas of prison reform. But this year, my goal was to try to expand that a little bit beyond just the prison issues, but the things that are connected to that, such as homelessness. 70% of the people I interviewed that are homeless have done time. We have 80 million people who are formerly incarcerated in America. That's a huge impact on our society on multiple levels. So this year, normally I would go with the 22nd district. Is that what it? 22nd district here, representing the Sangha. And there are so many issues and so many bills. Any one of them we could have said that, please represent us here. Hunger, climate change, you know, water issues, and on and on and on. But I felt I could speak about things that I knew best. So I did talk about prison reform, alternatives to prison, segregation and abuse and use of segregation in prison, and the torture that goes on there. And also, what I thought was really, really important was the fact that there has got to be an end to the death penalty. And this is something I felt that our community could support, and I would support if they were asked. There's just too many bills to do it all, so you have to really laser focus on just a few. I can probably live another 3 lifetimes and never pay back the kindness and the generosity of the Buddhist community throughout the world, and the United States, and the state of Washington, and the Olympia Zen Center. It was very difficult to try to meet all the representatives, because you have to go from building to another building and so on. But just like Mickey, I ran into all kinds of luck. I'd run from one building to another waiting for one representative or a senator, and I'd run into him in the hallway. I had a meeting with one in the bathroom. And I wasn't even scheduled to see him until like 2 hours later. And when I saw him, we started talking about how can we change this idea of just putting people away who with serious mental issues, when really that's their crime, is being mentally ill. And I had to, when I filed to apply to go to these workshops and to the fan day of advocacy, I put in my zip code, and that automatically threw me into the 35th district. And that is all Republican. And I mean, gung-ho, just all across the board. And at first I tried to get back to the 22nd to represent this, and was open with Democrats, which would be more open to to what I wanted to present, but it was not possible. But then I realized, what the best place to go is right into the lion's den. And so when I was in the bathroom with the representative, we had a nice conversation. And after a while, he said, I'd like for you to give me a call. We need to talk about this a little bit more. Because he said, I have a nephew who's in prison, and it's impacting our family a lot. And I never knew how much this would impact our family until he went into prison, the prison issues. And I think that we as a community have the opportunity to make change by just writing letters or talking to our representatives and senators. The bills, as Mickey said, some of the bills have died because they just were not heard, but we're going to meet them again down the road, and we'll try again over and over. But it was the Olympia Zen Center and Ado and the community here who supported me that allowed me to go and do the work that I'm doing today with people who are homeless, people who are involved in reentry. And no matter what I do, I always feel like it's like using a credit card. I use it, and then I have to pay it, and I have to pay it back. And I'm constantly paying this forward. I'm trying to pay it forward because I've received so much, and the receiving side never ends. Every time I do something, I get two of something else, and I'm always in debt. I'm just always in debt, and dang it, I like it. So thank you. And if you have questions about anything, please feel free to ask afterwards. I'll be available, as will Mickey, and we are happy to represent you. If you have an issue that you've seen in the legislature or in the news or anything that you'd like us to talk about or to deal with, we'd be more than happy to do that. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much to Mickey and Calvin for representing us so ably at the legislature. And I hope you will take the opportunity to ask them questions about anything that might have come up for you during these talks. Compassionate action in the world is what we do, no matter whether it's at the legislature or at our job or with our family. This is what our practice is in everyday life. So this is really important work. And it's like Calvin said, it's one little drop of water added to another little drop of water, and next thing you know, you have a glass. Or the ocean eventually. So each thing you do matters. And our practice as Zen students is to do whatever comes to us You know, someone asked me one time, well, how can I help other people? And I said, every time you see somebody, you know, and that person was thinking more on the lines of, you know, some kind of a volunteer work or a profession or et cetera. And I said, every time you see somebody that needs help, help them. That's all you really need to do. That's it. And sometimes in this kind of compassionate action, something that starts out with a very small action burgeons into a much larger work, because others see what's happening and they join in. And, you know, we've all seen things, well, I guess maybe not, because I don't use social media, but things do go viral out there. So, you know, just that one little drop. You see a person that needs help, help them. Do we have time for questions now, or?
I don't think we do, actually.
Okay,
But I don't have a clock on.
We'll go ahead and do fellowship afterwards. And,
10:30.
Yeah.
sorry?
10:30.
Yeah.
Or 11:30, sorry.
Okay,
We're available during snack time.
yeah.
Would you like to we can ring a bell, and you guys, if you want a more dedicated space, people can get coffee and a treat, and then in a few minutes come down here. You know, we had started to do that occasionally. Do you have a preference, or just casually up in the?
I think
in the
we'll
space?
just sit around on the couch and.
Great.
All right, thank you very much. We wish you on Zoom a coffee and a treat as well.